Hi, and welcome to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Basson, and I am a relationship expert, international speaker, and best-selling author of a book, Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news or social media, TV, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories, and listen to what real people think, do, or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guests, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. And here today we have Amanda Relyea-Voss, and we are going to talk about abusive relationships. Hi, Amanda.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, good, thank you. You?
Oh, I'm surviving over here. It's been a rainy week. Been stuck inside the house, so that's always fun. But just a little disclaimer to the listeners, I do have a new puppy, so if you hear a bark, I'm sorry, I can't help
That's what it is. Yeah, that's fair enough. So tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
So I am 31 years old. I own and run a social media marketing company, and I live in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. I've been in the marketing industry for quite a while, but the reason that I am on this podcast is because I made an agreement with myself to speak about things that are difficult and that I have had shame around throughout my lifetime. If you've listened to this podcast, I actually already did an interview, and it was talking about the relationship with my body. Go listen. I'm not going to talk about what that was. But I'm basically challenging myself this year to speak about the things that I've been ashamed about, and hopefully in turn help at least one person. One person is all I really want to help.
So tell us about, the abusive relationship that you were in.
So this I will describe as emotionally abusive, and I did not realize that this was happening to me while I was in it.
I think that it's fair to say that most people don't, to be fair, because I ended up in one of those myself and I didn't quite see it at the time.
It was absolutely heartbreaking when I came to the realization and that light bulb went on. I was in therapy for about a year, and a lot of what I talked about with my therapist was relationships, whether it was with my body or with another human being like my dad or my friends or the guy that I was seeing at the time. And when we got onto the topic of my romantic relationship, I was, speaking about some of the emotions that I was feeling around how he was talking to me and how he was judging other relationships in my life. And I'm not a psychological blah, blah, blah professional. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any training. And it dawned on me that he was trying to isolate me from the other people in my life and control all of the aspects of my life. I did not know this because of the way he went about it. And I don't know what the clinical term is for someone like this, but he was poisoning my mind around each of my friendships and even some of my relationships with family members, in order to convince me that they were not positive relationships and that I did not need them in my life, and that he was going to be the one that improved the quality of my life and allowed me to reach my full potential. An example, a very small one, was I had photos of me and my friends that I had put up in the apartment where we were living. Actually, correction, we were living, he owned the house and we set up the basement apartment. And he would say, like, why do you have photos of these people up on the wall? They're all bad people. They've done things to hurt you. These are negative triggers that are going to keep you in your past, and you won't be able to move forward from these poisonous, toxic relationships. And I didn't really understand what he was saying, because if you could see my apartment, there's photos absolutely everywhere from like childhood all the way up until now. I love photos. They make me smile. And I did not see any of these images as reminders of negative emotion. I saw them as reminders of positive emotion because I'm smiling and having good times in all of the photos. And it got to the point where I actually changed out every single photo in the apartment to photos of him and me. And that was what he allowed, because he was the godsend and he was the best thing that I had in my life, and I was lucky to be with him, and shame on me for wanting to display any other part of my life in our home.
I think the thing that, you know, looking at it from my own point of view and also dealing with it on a professional level, people who are abusive in that way, it's obviously something, you know, that makes them feel better, but they're normally extremely good at reading signs and manipulating people. They know normally exactly what buttons to press. Did you find that at all?
Oh yeah, 100%. So during the time that I was with him, I was in an apartment on my own and loving it. And like we met, and he was basically living in there within a couple of weeks of meeting me. So that was like the control almost immediately. He moved, he had a, okay, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want, if he listens, anyway, whatever. Like all this stuff came in, and he was there full time. He was there when I wasn't there. He had a key. And then within 3 months, he was encouraging me to move out and move into his house, which is all the way across town in the basement, which also removes me from my friends because I didn't have a vehicle. I don't drive. Mm-hmm. So it was all the way on the other end of town, and it took a 30-minute public transit ride to get into town. And it was just one of the other elements where he moved me.
I suppose he removed an element of stability from your side, and I guess that was also very quick.
I'm one of those like jump in with both feet people. So when I met him, like I just thought he was the cat's pajamas, or whatever that saying is. Like the sun rose and set with him, and he was the best thing ever. And oh my gosh, I'm so lucky that someone like this cares about me. And he definitely used that to his advantage. And I mean, maybe that's my fault for going in too fast. I do remember several people saying like, oh, you're moving in with him already, like you're giving up your apartment, that seems quick. And I'm like, but he's so awesome, he makes me so happy, we do all these fun things together. And I was so, like, even looking back, like I can remember feeling happy, but now I'm like, well, like, what the fuck were you doing? Like, that is the worst thing you could have done. You give up your independence, let him move into your place, moved into his house where he's in full control. And then not only that, I was like expected to be home after work. And as the months went on, I found myself leaving work a little early and like going to a local restaurant and sitting at the bar and having a drink by myself, and like calling all my friends and sending all my text messages, because once I got home, you're on your phone, get off your phone, who are you talking to, make me dinner, blah blah blah. And like, oh, I hate saying it because I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, oh my god, like how did you allow that to happen? But
did you realize it at the time, this is another thing?
No, I didn't. I was happy. I thought everything was cool. Now once I started showing up home later and later, that's when it kind of hit me that like this isn't healthy and I don't want to go home. Because I'd get home and I had worked a full day, and at the time he was kind of like on and off work. He had a surgery in which I was his full-time nurse afterwards, and he was always there waiting for me, and I felt like he didn't really have a life. So, I'd go home late and it was, oh, where were you? What were you doing? And I'm like, I went to work in my office and then came home. Like, what do you think I was doing? And I don't think that it was about cheating or anything. It was just about the fact that he wanted to know where I was at all times.
And I know that in my particular case, there was a number of things that happened. I think just to share a little bit, I'm quite a strong person, and I sometimes feel, Jesus Christ, if I ended up in that situation, if I had been weak, what would that have been like, sort of thing. And there was a particular argument where I ended up sat on the kitchen floor, which is slate, so it's very, very cold, especially in November, at 2 o'clock in the morning, because basically I'd asked him to put the volume of the TV down because I was working the next day and he was off work for 2 weeks, and he made a massive thing of it. And when you think of it, looking back, you're just like, oh my God, how did that let that happen? And I was sat on the kitchen floor crying, thinking, how is this my life? And when I spoke to people afterwards, they all said, oh, we knew it was bad news. And I remember saying, but why didn't you tell me something at the time? Oh, we didn't want to interfere. And I'm like, but I already knew that deep down. I needed reassurance, I suppose, from other people. And if I had £1 or $1 from everybody who told me that, you know, there was loads of them.
Yeah, I was the exact same, except I will say that there were a few people who said that they didn't like him. And I'm like, oh no, like you don't understand him like I do. Like he's so nice to me. We're good. But there are several people in my life who did say like, oh, I get a really weird vibe from him. And like from the beginning, not like, 2 or 3 weeks in, like first time meeting them and they text me, they're like, whoa, what a weird vibe. And I just wasn't willing to hear it.
And that's the thing, you have to be ready to hear it.
Yeah. I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, like all the signs were there, blah, blah, blah. But you don't know. And you meet someone and you really like them and you ignore all of that stuff and you convince yourself that like, I'm good. Or even if you feel like there's some kind of red flag, like I'm going to be the one to make them change. Like I'm worth it. Like, and that's like everyone says that to themselves. And like realistically, no, you're not. Like you're not the one that's going to change them because no one is. The only reason that they will ever change is because they want to change, and they're not going to want to change because of someone else. They're going to want to change because of themselves.
And what was the process? How did you realize, and what did you do next?
To like remove myself from the situation. So we were together for almost a year. And what was we went somewhere and we were like driving back in the car and I said something that I knew would set him off. Mm-hmm. And he just basically was like, we're done, blah, blah, blah. Like, I can't believe you said that about me. Get the F out of my house right now. And, it was like a big whirlwind of tears and I was calling my mom and blah, 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 blah. And actually, the worst part about it is that because I was living in his place, I had to start an apartment search. Mm-hmm. And I actually lived in the same place with him for 3 months after that conversation while I was looking for somewhere to go. And he liked to pretend like everything was good. So we still acted like a couple, although both of us knew that as soon as I found somewhere, I would be out. And then even when I moved out, and that's into the place that I currently am, he was over here. Like he came over like 3 weekends in a row. He wanted to set up my Christmas tree with me. And I let him because I was lonely after having lived with someone. And then he also had tenants upstairs that we were friends with. And it took me a while to be like, nope, like this is my apartment. No, you're not coming over here. No, I'm not going to coffee with you. Why are you still talking to me? Like you ended this after putting me through a bunch of shit. I'm willing to walk away. Like, okay, man, cool. Don't want to be with me. Let's move on. But you're still poking. And you know what? It's been over a year. Guess who messaged me 3 days ago? Because knew I was back in Kingston. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Want to come see me? Nah, man. Don't want to come see you. No fucking desire. However, I should probably have blocked that number. But I didn't. Why is that? Unresolved issues that I need to feel like I prove to him that I'm better than he thinks I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think it's necessarily that. I don't block numbers. I keep them because I'd rather know who that person or that number is, because then it's easier to manage. Because if someone really wants to contact you, they find a different number. You only got to get
accurate. That's accurate.
I have never blocked a number for that particular reason. And I mean, the guy I was with at the time, I ended up taking an injunction against him. And it took, even after that expired, which is a good 7.5 years ago, I think it took a good 5 years for me to stop looking over my shoulder at night if I was walking back home. Despite the fact he's not even in the same, area anymore, but because you just never know.
Wow. Yeah, I am very lucky in that has never been something that's happened to me. When I was very young, there was one incident that happened, but I made it very clear that like that was an unacceptable behavior and I never heard from the person again. But like this person that I'm talking about isn't a bad person. I think that he's just, what's the word?
Well, this is a question actually I was going to ask you. Quite often there are reasons why people feel the need to abuse others. And they don't see it as abuse. To them, it's just, they're trying to enlighten you with their ways, which is far better than yours. And do you think that actually part of the solution is that we should help them to deal with their own demons? Because it comes from somewhere.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know where his come from, but they're there. And I don't think that it has to do with any of his outward relationships. I think it's the inward relationship with himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that the way that you worded that is so this guy. The enlighten you and bring you up to my level and show you the ways. And that was 100% how he talked to me. And like, he still talks like that. And I'm just like, yo, bud, like, stop drinking the fucking Kool-Aid. Like, you're not a higher being. You're not enlightening anyone. You're so full of yourself.
It's one of those because, they've obviously got an issue and they need to learn how to deal with it, because realistically, these people are not happy either, deep down. I mean, if I look at the guy I was with, what he enjoyed was the manipulation. He often said, if you have a small child and they do something wrong and you threaten to tap their hand, it isn't the tap that hurts. It's the anticipation of a tap.
Oh.
Yeah? And it's how he did it and date with people. He enjoyed that. What led to, everything and me realising was that he stages on suicide in my house and locked me out. That was quite extreme. And he was staged. I now know that. Let's not go into that. But what I'm trying to say is that it was the anticipation. And he wanted to show me what would happen if I left him.
Oh, wow. That is quite intense. I guess I will say that luckily the exit from this particular relationship was okay. No, it was fine. He didn't do anything negative. In fact, he actually helped me move in here. Mm-hmm. It was, in the end, it was amicable. It wasn't until after it was totally over, when I was in therapy looking back on it, that I realized all of the things that he was doing to like keep me in this little box. And like, hit the whole thing like, oh, I'm trying to improve your life and make you better. But in reality, no, I'm trying to keep you inside this box so that you can't do anything, and that I maintain control over you. And you think that, being with me is the only way to move forward and progress.
So what would you say to somebody who is listening to this and thinking, oh, that sounds a little bit like some of the trigger points I've noticed? What's the next step? What would you advise someone who would be in the same position?
That's a really hard piece of advice to give, because I don't think I would have heard any advice when I was in it. Mm-hmm. You've got to come to that realization on your own.
But that's what I mean. If someone is starting to realize, it's the point where you want reassurance that it's not just in your head.
You're not crazy. What you're thinking is probably 100% what is going on. And you will be fine if you walk away. There is nothing tying you to this situation, no matter what you have been conditioned to think. Life will go on. You will go about your way. You will build your life up again. And you do not need to stay in this. And it mostly fear-based is what, is able to control people. And I've been there, and like on a personal level, on a business level, and push through the fear and just realize that it's going to be fine, and you're going to come out the other side and you're going to be way better off in the end.
Is there anything that you wish you'd done differently, looking back on it?
Yeah, I wish I hadn't have jumped into it so fast, because I think if I had more time to assess the situation, I might have realized what was happening before I was like knee deep or even neck deep.
And is that something you've taken for the future? Is it something that now you will be careful that you don't jump in with 2 feet? Or is it just, it was one of those and I'll do it again because it's a bit different set of circumstances?
No, I 100% am using that moving forward. Mm-hmm. I am in another relationship, and that's a very, very long story for another podcast. But definitely maintaining my independence and focusing on my self-love. And if that person wants to join me for the ride, they are more than welcome. But I am not ever going to give of myself in that way and jump in and just let go of my personal identity the way that I did.
So being devil's advocate now, would you say that it's completely pushed you the other way, and you could be turning, or at some point where even a bit of a commitment phobe?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, that's not me. I am a lover.
Mm-hmm.
And the commitment isn't the issue. It's the fact that people lose themselves when they're in a romantic relationship. And it's just, it's a we rather than an I anymore. It's always we this, we this, we
Mm-hmm.
this. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to maintain the fact that like you're a singular human being with your own thoughts, emotions, and goals. And I actually have really enjoyed the rise of the term partner rather than boyfriend or girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the people that are labeling themselves that are working in a partnership rather than the traditional, like, oh, that's my man, or oh, that's my woman. It's, oh, that's my partner. We're in this together. We're both singular people that are in a partnership to better both of our lives.
And I know we're speculating here, but if we were to ask this guy what he thought of his time with you, what do you think he'd say?
I was the best thing that ever happened to her, and she's a dumbass for letting me go.
Fair enough. But he's still there. He's still trying.
Oh, he totally would. Yeah, I mean, I've communicated with him a few times, but it's always like he'll reminisce back to, oh, well, I really liked that about you. And oh, I really liked that about you. And like he tries to dig into what I am doing in my life right now, and I give him absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And like little snide comments too. But I'm not going to go into that because who knows who's listening.
Where is that? And would you say that he used emotional blackmail at all on you, or was it just control?
Well, I would argue that basically everything that he did was emotional blackmail.
Okay.
Right? All of it, like telling me that my relationships are toxic and these people are bad for me is a one way, right? Or highlighting the fact that I'm getting ahead in life or in business because I have him, and if he is gone, I will lose that. Oh yeah, you're doing really well because I'm here supporting you. And we won't get into that element of it as well. But I mean, when you're living in someone's house rent free and they own the house and they have tenants on the upper floor that cover the mortgage, I was paying every single bill in the house, for the apartment. So in reality, he was actually banking off me because he had no bills to pay. How is that him helping me get ahead? We go on a weekend getaway. I got the hotel, I got the car rental. I paid the utility bill. I bought the groceries. I made the dinner. I paid for the cleaners to come in and clean the house. And he just sat there making money off his renters and then watching me pay all of his day-to-days and then banked money and then bought another house. Like,
is there any sort of resentment from that?
There was for a bit, but right, like at this point, nah. Like if I see his name pop up or I think about something for a long time, I was really, really angry about it, but I've actually moved on. That's why I'm able to do this. If I was still in that spiral of like, what did I do? And like, oh, should I try to get back with him? And blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't be able to openly talk about it. And I will 100% say that like I've moved on. I wish him all the best. I'm pretty sure he has a new girlfriend. Good luck to her, considering he's still reaching out to me and probably his other exes as well. No one deserves that.
Yeah. And once you left him, how long did it take you to actually move on, so to speak, and process what happened?
Well, it was the fact that he was coming around for the first bit was difficult. I would say a few months before I was really, so like I was still in therapy when he left. So I got to, like I said a few times, I got to use that to process a bit. And then as soon as that light bulb went on about what happened during the relationship, I was like, yo, fuck that. Like there was no feelings left whatsoever. And it was more like, instead of sadness, it was anger and a little bit of regret, which I hate saying. But I was more mad at myself. Like, I'm not going to blame him for it. Well, yeah, see, that's another tough one.
It's a weird one because you kind of let it happen. So
exactly.
But then why did you do you know what I mean? There's so many different.
Yeah, and then you go to therapy. Well, why did I let this person treat me like shit? Because I don't think that I'm worth it. And why don't I think I'm worth it? Because I've and then we're just going down this rabbit hole, right?
But having said all that, do you actually think that people like that who actually end up trying to get control, or we call it emotional abuse, they wouldn't see it like that, obviously, But do you think that these people actually have got kind of an instinct for picking up on the prey and the vulnerable?
100%. Yep, 100%. The girl he was dating before me was probably in a worse spot than I was.
Mm-hmm.
And they find the ones they think are broken and then convince them that they're broken and then try to fix them. And that's how they exercise their control, for sure.
And do you think that sometimes you were maybe pushing his trigger points unconsciously?
Oh, as in like, saying what I know would piss him off? Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, that was the thing that ended the relationship. I
pushed,
said the most hurtful thing that I knew would hurt him, and that set him off, and that was the end of it. But at the same time, maybe my subconscious is telling me, do this and end it, because you're not going to be able to walk away. You can't be the one to walk away. Because I don't know what would have happened if that didn't happen. I can't tell you with any certainty whether I would still be with this person. I'm not really one to, I have walked away from relationships in the past, but I err on the side of oh, well, things will work out and people will change. And whether all of the evidence is stacked up against me, I'm still a positive thinker and I want it to work. So I don't give up. I'm not someone who gives up easily.
Fair enough. Well, Amanda, we're getting towards the end of our time together already. What last thing would you like to say to anybody who's listening?
Oh, this is always so hard to answer. If you think that this is happening to you, like I said before, the advice, don't be afraid. Obviously, it happens to lots of people, whether you realize it's happening or not. And get yourself out of the situation and work on yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are your person. As much as you want to have another person there, you're the only one that's going to be able to help you, and you just need to step up and do it, and you're going to be fine.
And face up.
You're going to be fine.
Right, Amanda, thank you so much. And to everybody else, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, leave us a review, but more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.